There's a plague that's all over our world, a plague of alcoholism and drug addiction. And this plague has filled the prisons of the world to overflowing. 75 to 85% of the people in prisons in any country in the world are there because of chemical addiction. And this message is going to bring hope to those people.
I've been locked up for years in self-pity, condemnation, being alone, angry, full of rage. And I want you to know that that's not what God intends for you. What God has for you is liberty, freedom to choose to live for Him, freedom to say no to the world and its ways which are contrary to God. Everything that I've ever done led me to prison, led me to each number, led me to my bunk. I know about count time with you, man. I know what it is to be in lockdown. I know about the hole or the box, whatever you want to call it. But I'm here to tell you that God has another plan for your life, one that He knew you before the foundation of the world.
All of us are in prison to some degree or another, and only the gospel of Jesus Christ can set us free. And I believe this message has the power to do that.
This message sets men free.
I'm James, and this time we're going to look at two types of love, the right kind and the wrong kind. But we're going to look at how the wrong kind messes us up.
Tonight, or this session, third session, is called Perverted Love. I can't tell you how pivotal, honest to God, pivotal this session really is. If the Lord would allow us to understand, I mean clearly understand what it is we want to talk about. I have chased this for many, many years. And I'm going to make some pretty bold statements. I do it because what I'm saying I have proven, I have walked out, I have tried to implement the things that I want to say to you. And so what we're trying to do tonight is make a distinction between two words. These two words are so very, very critical. The two words, those are the two words. We're trying to make a distinction between them. And I'm going to work on this for a while for us to be able to grasp something. And I'll show you in the next lesson why it is most of you have never heard or ever been introduced to one of these two words. See, these are two totally different words, but in English we are poverty-stricken. Do you understand? I say I love God and I love my dog. You know, so we don't have words to work with. Many other languages have a lot of words to work with, and we can make a distinction, but English doesn't do that. And so we're trapped sometime. And so we're looking at these two words, and we're going to try to make a distinction between these two words. And what I want to say is that there are two, these are the definitions. If you want to write them on your notes here, just do it right off of there. God's love is unconditional and it's self-giving. That's the nature of God's love. It's unconditional and it's self-giving. And God is always giving of Himself. And one of the reasons that we don't know God and that we don't understand God is because we are so totally opposite to that in the fall, in the initial entrance of sin into the world, when we talk about man's love, it is conditional and it is always self-referential. Now, I use the word self-referential, and then I'll give you these two symbols. These two symbols right here are very, very important. God's love is always, always, always a straight arrow. When I start to touch this and I start working with it, I'm not talking in a classroom and I'm not trying to impress anybody, but when I work with this at home in my study, I sit sometimes and just break. I just break because I think, my God, how am I going to communicate what it is that I really see? And now, the second love, God's love, is unconditional and self-giving. Man's love is always conditional and self-referential. It always has in it what I call the hook. The hook means that I love you if I can get something out of it. And we'll see how this works in just a few moments. But I'll love you, the hook, is always in it. There's always in it something that is there. And some of you remember one of the times when I was here before, we talked about two teenagers on the couch. And you remember that? And the two teenagers. Now, this word up here is agape, all right? This is the word agape. And this word down here is eros. The word is eros. That's the word eros, which is man's love, and agape. And these are the two words. When I say love or I say love, I have to understand which of these two words is being implemented and what is coming down. And in a moment, I'm going to erase all this and try to show you how much baggage there is on this love. This will be agape, and this is going to be eros, and we'll try to show you how much baggage comes down on us through these. And then in the next hour, I'll show you that if you were born after 1960, chances are you have never heard the word agape. A whole society has been washed almost free of the word, that it's almost lost in our whole society and our whole civilization. And so I'll try to show you that. I'm not trying to do it philosophically. I'm trying to do it very practically, because the condition that we find ourselves in is a direct result of not understanding how this works. And so then we find ourselves increasingly in one jam or another. Now, I said that man's love, conditional and self-referential. These two words, self-referential, is beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, in all of the studies, you learn one major point, and it's this. There is only one unifying factor for all cultures, all men, in all societies, at all times, whether the Pacific Island or the middle of India or the middle of New York City, the one thing that unites all human beings is this word self-referential, or love with a hook. There is no society, there is no human being, there is no person, there is no situation where you can go and discover a human being or a human society that doesn't love without baggage. And so we'll try to bring that into focus in a moment. Agape and eros. Now I'll make a couple statements to you, and what I'm trying to do is just introduce you to the whole idea, and then our brain starts thinking in these terms. Number one, these two arrows, I believe with all my heart, will interpret all of life. I think they are so comprehensive as to be almost, I just almost cannot exaggerate them, and I'll try to show you how that works in a moment. Again, not philosophically, but for those of you who want to buy into what we're saying, I want to show you that these two arrows, These two arrows will interpret all of life. And if you can hear me, I would like to say, read your Bible with these two arrows in mind. I have a special pen, and all through my Bible, as I read the stories, I will put these two arrows in there to show God's love coming at us without a hook, and man's response is always trying to get something from God. You understand? And you'll see it. It is so infected, and life is so infected, and the situation is so heavy that sometimes you can't even understand. And there's a philosopher by the name of Van Til. Van Til is probably one of the great thinkers of our society, and he said, if you want to know what a thing really is, press it out to its ultimate issue. So what I'm going to do, just very quickly, is put the word eros up here and the word agape up here and tell you why I think that this is all-consuming and totally comprehensive. Van Til said, take the idea that you have and press it as far as you can press it. If I take eros and press it all the way out to the end, I arrive at the person of Satan himself. Because Satan is the first person in all of creation that was self-referential. I will. And Satan makes his declaration as being totally self-referential. And of course, his infection comes to Adam and Eve to all mankind. And so we have something that is so deeply rooted and so total that it's a phenomenon. Now, if we take this one and we press it as far as we can take this one, is the interesting thing, we come out with the person by the name of God. And God is what? God is love. God is agape. Greek word, God is agape. So if I press this out as far as I can take it, I find the person of God, his very nature, which is unconditional and self-giving. If I press this one as far as I can, I find something that is clinging, taking, demanding, using people for our own advantage. And so then I find this thing. Now, what I want to try to do is try to show you, if I could, by 2 marks, and show you that in here, within these 2 lines, is the whole conflict of human society. It's the human predicament. It is the human predicament, so simplistically put that I didn't have the courage for 5 years to state it. But now that I have searched it, I'm telling you, the human predicament, the conflict of the human predicament rests right in this, and this is the battlefield. And as you know, we'll take some answers, some questions on this in a few minutes. And what I want to do is try to show you how this thing works. Now, just so we can get the pieces before we start trying to make application out of it, I want to give you a couple definitions, and I'd like for you to put these in your notes if you would. And if you're watching by video, these pictures will come up on your screen so that you'll not be out of connection with it. Now, I talked about the baggage of Eros. Let's put up here for a moment the baggage. The baggage means when I say to you, I love you, you got to figure out what I mean. What am I after? What do I want? What is the motive? What's behind it? And so the baggage of Eros is unbelievable. And I was talking about these 2 kids on the couch, and they're getting involved passionately, and they're kissing, and they're both aroused. And she says to him, tell me that you love me, and we can have sex. She's asking for what? She's asking for agape. She's asking him for some kind of commitment, unconditional, self-giving love. She wants him to commit himself to her for the future and marriage, and she wants him to be the man that's going to take care of her. And so she says to him, if you tell me you love me, you understand? So she's asking for something. And he says to her, I love you. And he says, I love you. I love you. All right? I love you. Now, what's he giving her? Okay, he's giving her Eros because what he is after is something conditional, self-referential. He is using her for what? For his own pleasure. Now, my brothers, those who are listening by tape, if you follow with me these next few sessions, one of the things God's going to break in us is using people for our own advantage. Now, and I'm telling you, when it breaks, you talk about freedom. I'll show you how this works in just a moment. Now, the baggage, and I will try to very quickly give you a couple pieces that go on that go with this, and I'll just try to show you. Eros become erotic. You know the word erotic, all right? The word eros became erotic. It became sexual for two reasons, all right? Number one, eros, let's don't use the word erotic. Let's use the word eros, all right? Eros becomes erotic for several reasons. One, it's a love which seeks, let's use the word, it seeks to conquer. It seeks to conquer. It's a love that seeks to conquer and possess. All right? Two, it's a love that seeks to use what it loves for its own pleasure. Can anybody tell me how this word became sexual? All right. If it's a love that reaches out to conquer and possess, and it's a love that reaches out to use the object for its own pleasure, how did the word become erotic and sexual? Fairly easy to perceive, isn't it? Because what's behind that now the Greeks, early Greek civilization, absolutely exalted this word, and I can't give you all the history of it, but as it began to find out to seek her, to conquer and possess, it began to be used in an erotic. He began to use almost exclusively sexual, but it was not initially sexual. It was. Now, God's love, of course, does not seek to conquer nor possess, and God's love never uses anybody. All right? Amazing thing. That's why I was talking to you earlier about voluntary love towards God, because God's jealousy is seek to draw us to himself, so he doesn't use people. He just does not use people. But God's love is not desire, but giving. All right? God's love is not possessing, but self-sacrificing. And so it becomes a thing. Now, let me give you two other things. Eros is demanding, and it's always in a hurry. It's an amazing thing. Eros is urgent, because I want you to meet my needs. When? Now. It always, we could use the word urgent. Maybe that would be better than a hurry, but there's always an urgency in it. And you say, and agape, A-G-A-P-E, agape is I just wrote these out because I was fussing with this today. it always speaks of time and value. Now here's something that you may not understand, and that is this. Apart from God, human being has no value. And the thing that gives us value is that God set his love on us. You understand? That when we became the object of his love, then I had value because his love was set on me, and the value that... So time, I can't get off on this, we'll never get back, but time, how many here recognize one of the reasons our father or mother doesn't give us time is why? Yeah, too busy. In other words, I've got things to do and people to see, got to get this thing happen. And God is able to give us time, individual time. He's able to love us as an individual. And I've been deeply moved by what's behind this. Now, I must get to some ideas of how this works, and I'll try to show you without it being too complicated. It goes like this. Eros is symbolized by the hook. As Eros matures, it makes a circle. It comes in upon itself. And when Eros comes in upon itself, it has a tendency to circle in on itself. Does that sound familiar? When God judges a thing, come on. Anybody? He sends it in circles. Now, when this thing starts to circle right here, this is what I have in your notes. This is called an Eros Prison. Now, brothers, my dear friends, please hear me. Everybody's worrying about the state prison, the federal prison, the prison with bars. That is nothing compared to this one. This is the real prison. This is the prison that gets you in prison. This is the prison that causes us to be addictive. This is the consummate prison, and in your notes it says, this is a prison with bars stronger than what? Stronger than iron. And we're going to list some of the prisons. I want to list some. I wrote them down. I'd like for you to write them down on the margin of your thing by the Eros prison there. Let's take a couple moments. Now, it starts, I was born like this. This is how I was born. I was born with a hook, and I learned how to con from the cradle. Is that right? You learn to con from the cradle. The baby cries, it's wet. And we go pick it up, and the baby learns immediately the wet cry. So you will come and pick it up. The baby is born with a con. He or she is and this is what David was trying to express in the 51st Psalm. He said, I was born in sin. There was corruption. The hook was in me when I was born. Now, see, now he's having a revelation of what was going on. Now, watch, as this hook, this is what I was born. If I yield to this thing, what happens? If I yield to Eros, what happens? The thing closes in on me. And as it closes in on me, and it becomes a prison. Let's just name some, and maybe you could give me some. I just wrote these down this afternoon. That's great. How many of you know drugs is a prison stronger than iron? Man, when you get strung out on drugs, you are in a prison, buddy, that nobody can get you out without God intervening, all right? All right? Let's name some of them. How about sexual and pornography? Now watch, when this thing comes in, I'm talking about homosexuality and masturbation and pain and pressures and stuff that continues. Now, I'll show you why this is so. The reason is because we are centered in on ourselves. How many here know that pornography is stronger than your imagination? Stronger than your will? See, when it really lays hold of you. Name a couple other ones. How about the desire to be in control? You ever seen a man or woman who absolutely had to be in control? Mickey and I watched a film about a mother that was in control, that controlled her family in such a way that destroyed it. And it was, man, we could hardly talk afterward, couldn't we? Because it was evident what was happening was the control. Now, the Eros Prison, look at what happens. Now, what I want to try to show you this from the side view. The side view says these walls, I want you to draw this if you would. You have it on your notes, but I want you to draw at the bottom of that a small one, right at the bottom of that. Would you draw a circle like that so I can show you what's behind that, and we'll look at it in a moment. Now this is the top view. This is the side view. We're looking down there, and I want to put three things down here so that you understand what this prison is like. When this prison closes in on you, and you are a prison of your own Eros development. How many here have ever seen a totally spoiled 4-year-old? No, we laugh. But listen, man, it is frightening. Here's a child 4 years old whose prison has already closed in on him. And the mother and father laughs and said, "Ain't he cute?" And without any understanding of where this child is going and what's going to happen. No understanding at all of what's going on. And most of us never had a dad that loved us enough to bust this thing. See? Most of us never had a father who cared enough to break this prison, and we'll see where that goes. Now, number one, the walls thicken. That means as I get into this prison, the walls of this thing thicken. And I wanted to say, I'd like to say a pile about that. Second, number two, is it's involutional. Involutional means, even though I'm in it, I'm spinning down out of control. When I'm spinning down out of control, I'm heading to this place, number three. Number three, alone. All right? Number three is alone. And when you find yourself alone, I want you to put these couple words in there. When I'm alone, I'm afraid. I don't care how big and bad you are, man. When you're alone, you're afraid. And I've seen it in all kinds of men, and the heavy players in prison and everything. When you're alone, you're afraid. Second, you're mean. You're mean. Meaner than a junkyard dog. Meaner than a snake. You'll bite, you'll hurt, you'll injure people. You'll do anything to get your own way. Because when this prison starts to close in on you, what happens is, and life is not going the way we want it, and I find myself coming down. Next thing you know, I'm alone. When I'm alone, I'm afraid. And when I'm afraid, come on, I'm mean. But I've experienced it. I've done it. Third thing is rage. And we'll deal with this probably in a couple sessions. I'm going to you and I have got to deal with rage. Now, when I am in this prison, this is the real prison. Now, brothers, listen, You'd rather be in San Quentin than be in this one. Now, this is what happens. The time is finished, and I parole this guy. Look at him right here. I parole him. Where's he going to be? 3 weeks max. 3 months. 3 weeks. 3 months max. He's full of rage. He's full of fear. He's meaner than a snake. And he's very much alone. And we turn him out on the street because he's done his time. And now he has been rehabilitated. God help us, man. I'm telling you, God help us. And we've got to find a way out of this. Is the prison that we need to find our way out of. Now, hear me when I say this. This can be a Christian. Saved or unsaved is not the issue. There are Christians in this prison just as sure as there are unsaved in this prison. And I'll try to make that clear as we come down on this thing. Now, there are people. How many of you understand the word involutional? Do you know what involutional means? It means a downward spiral that we can't control. That's the word involutional. It means I see myself sinking into a black hole, and I can't stop it. And man, that is the most frightening thing that I have ever seen. Now, we're going to picture this from a different kind of a picture in the next session. Father, for those of us who are alone, full of rage and mean, would you bring to us answers that would release us from a prison that is with bars stronger than iron. In Jesus' name, amen.
What impacted me the most was the Eros Prison. I got out of prison. It was worse on the outside in the world than it was in prison because I was so wrapped up in myself. And, wrapped up so tight in that prison and being set free from that. You know, I experienced more freedom from that prison than the 4 years I had spent in getting out.
It was a prison that I couldn't get out of. And finally, the Lord reached out to me, and He took me out of all that, and He started to put my focus back on Christ.
I grew up in a world that I felt that I didn't belong into, and I felt like the first 18 years of my life I was a prisoner in that world. And when I graduated from high school, I left to seek an identity, and what I think I found because of my selfishness was a prison of my own within myself, and the Eros Prison.
If you just practice it and you ask God into your heart and you say, Lord, I'm sick of living this Eros life, love with a hook. I just want to be free. I mean, you can be free in prison, believe it or not. You can be freer in prison than the guard who's standing outside that door.
Next time we get together, we're going to see how Eros love makes us either a predator or a parasite, and how it makes things go wrong. See you then.